What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, continuing and finishing my deep dive into Van Halen studio albums. This is Van Halen studio albums, part 2, the Hagar, CHERONE, Return of DLR years. 6 albums, going to rank these from 6 to 1, and then at the end of the video, I will drop where these 6 mix in with the first 6, the original DLR run. All right, yeah, that's it. Zappa connection. Steve Vai obviously play lots of connections. Eddie, Frank, Steve Vai. Yeah, it's a whole world of them. LA rock. Yeah, all right. Anyways, that's it. I'm rambling. Let's get on to number 6. Probably not the one you think it is, because it's not. My number 6 is... I do not like this album. This is the album that officially made me go, okay, I am done with Van Halen. I do have higher opinions of the albums that all followed this, but in real time, way back in 1988, I was like, all right, I'm done. The production on this, I just think is it just sounds so horribly dated. The guitars are so incredibly processed. I think this is the first album where Eddie Van Halen as a guitar player, part of the joy of Eddie through like those first, even 5150, first 7 albums is his riff playing, his rhythm playing, his fills, his licks, his solos, like the entire package and everything he does. This is the one album where for the first time, it almost feels like there's so much processed energy going on with the guitar. There's so much of the synth rock stuff happening that his solos almost feel like isolated moments where, like, when you break Eddie's playing down to just the solos, it's not quite as impactful or as effective. Now, on the later albums, and especially by the last couple albums, I think his guitar solos in particular get much more interesting, and they get longer, more developed. He's starting to entertain longer solo areas and like developing ideas. But early on, it's his entire attack for the 3-4 minute song. This is the first time where it's like, oh, he just drops in for a solo and everything else just seems overproduced. A lot of these songs don't feel like they're played live. They just feel like they're manufactured. I've never liked this album. And the one good song that I'm always like, oh yeah, there is a good song on here, Finish What You Started. It's got this twangy little guitar part. Even when I go back to that, by the time I get to the song, it's like 2/3 of the way through the album. I'm like, okay, this stands out, and I still think is probably the best thing on this album. But it also, after that opening, just kind of goes into this typical Van Hagar style rock. I just don't like this album. Just a lot of processed guitars, a lot of synth rock. AFU, Naturally Wired, the third song is kind of a little more aggressive. It's kind of cool, but just some of it could work. The song has potential, but I just think the overall production, Cabo Wabo is kind of fun, got a relatively long Van Halen solo. Source of Infection has some upbeat stuff, but then the synth action. It's kind of it's got that little DLR moment where it's like a really faster song and Sammy gets to maybe do some ad-libbing, but he's not David Lee Roth. So I don't know. Yeah, this one I just don't enjoy. And they do a cover of Little Feat's Apolitical Blues at the end that just, why? It just doesn't do much for me. But yeah, if you like this one, good for you. I've just never been able to get it. My number 6, OU812. My number 5 is their Van Halen 3, their 11th, the Gary Cherone album. I almost ranked this higher, and I actually think this album I think this album is better than it generally gets regarded as. Is it a good Van Halen album? I don't know. It's a good rock album. A lot of the stuff doesn't sound like Van Halen, but I kind of like it. The problem is David Lee Roth was this character, this template, this sort of one of a kind. They try to get a version of him with Sammy Hagar, and Sammy Hagar had his strengths, but anytime he went into that DLR mode, it was just like, okay, you saw for me, the comparison, you're like, okay, you're not David Lee Roth. Gary Cherone seems like he's trying to be the Sammy Hagar to the David Lee Roth. And so we're getting further away. We're getting a copy of a copy. And so vocally, it just doesn't work. Musically, I think there's a lot of really good ideas on this album. I had it higher ranked, but the last song on here, How Many Say I, is bad. It's bad. It's by far the worst thing they've ever done. It's just bad. I do think a lot of songs on this album are just too long. They were a minute and a half shorter. They would just pack a little more punch and they wouldn't wear out their welcome by the end of it. But I think there's some good stuff on here. It does open up with a song called New World, which is this like new agey acoustic piano instrumental that, okay, I guess, doesn't seem like it belongs. But then the first song, like the 6.5 minute Without You, kind of works. Has this little RHCP adjacent type funk kind of buried in there. There's some good ideas in it, kind of playful and funky. It's not a bad vibe. One I Want's okay. From Afar has this sort of soft ballad into this louder ballad vibe that's kind of cool. I think CHERONE kind of delivers in the vocals. It's got a weird, different vibe than a normal Van Halen song, but it works. Dirty Water Dog has this really kind of moody, slinky kind of groove. Musically, really good. The song itself with the vocals, the chorus, kind of but musically, I think there's some interesting stuff there. Once has this almost chill, new wavy piano, electronic drum vibe that's just weird. Kind of more sounds like a Duran Duran song than a Van Halen song, but it kind of works. Fire in the Hole's okay. Josephina's kind of not good at all. Kind of some cheesy type light ballady that I don't really like. Year to the Day, 8.5 minutes that kind of works. It's kind of just long and it kind of wears on you. There's this really nice solo at the end that's kind of epic. Yeah, the length kind of pays off. Maybe a little too indulgent, but I don't know, won me over by the end. This cool instrumental called Primary, which sounds like a Henry Kaiser type weird avant-garde guitar thing that absolutely works. And then the last two songs, Ballad of the Bullet is okay. Kind of a nice high tempo drop, Ballad or the Bullet. But then the last song, How Many Say I had to penalize the album because that thing is atrocious. Don't listen to it. It's just bad. It's just piano. It sounds like a really bad Roger Waters piano opera thing. I don't know. The less said about it, the better. But Gary Cherone, Michael Anthony's only on 3. I think it's a much better music. I think musically there's some interesting ideas. They might not be Van Halen ideas, but they're interesting. Cherone, poor guy. He didn't stand a chance. But I think this is better than OU812. Just sounds better for one. None of those 80s production issues. This is a 1998 release. But yeah, not a horrible album. My number 5. My number 4, their 10th, 1995's Balance. The last one with, what's his name? Sammy Hagar. Not a bad album, but also not a great album. A little dull at times. There are some fun moments throughout here. I think the first 2 songs just don't set it up well. The Seventh Seal, Can't Stop Loving You, just very poppy, hard rock, almost radio-friendly stuff. But then Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. Don't like the heavy processed guitar on here, but there's a really nice urgency to the verses in particular that I really, really like. A really nice closing solo, kind of a more serious adult vibe, and I mean that in a positive way. Kind of a good song. Amsterdam, which has the all-time either high or low point lyric, wham, bam, oh, Amsterdam. We're going to pass on that sort of clunky riff-driven rock. I think if we start off with Sammy going, light 'em up. Yeah, this ain't quite light 'em up music. Big Fat Money, which is a horrible name, is a really fun, feel-good rocker where Eddie just absolutely shreds. Kind of has some CCR traveling band type energy. Really nice. Kind of a silly song, but it's a good dose of silly. Doing Time, a little quirky instrumental. Aftershock has a really cool intro that kind of creeps in, but then once we get to the song, it kind of doesn't pay off with how good the intro is. Strung Out is another, sounds like an instrumental where somebody's playing literally the strings of a piano, not the piano itself, but just like opening the case and playing that. Not Enough is a piano ballad, nice epic ballad type thing with even string sounds. Take Me Back, Deja Vu, kind of good, has this sort of opening doobies vibe and goes into this sort of like Stixy type of little mini sweet type thing with all the different things, like a Grand Funk Railroad. What is that, Coming Home? What's the name of that Grand Funk Railroad song that I don't like about the ocean? The water, whatever that song is. Captain, My Captain, Captain, that Captain song. Why can I not remember the name of that song? But it has that sort of like mini epic type vibe. And then Feeling closes out with like a big epic ending, like 6.5 minute song. It's not a bad album. It's not a great album. It'll do okay. Nothing horrible on this. My number 4, their 10th. Balance. My number 3, horrible title. 1991's their 9th, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Yeah, they're trying to make a point. Look at the initials of those words, people. Woo! Yeah, I just think this is much better than OU812, which is the one that preceded this. I think the playing is better. It's not great, but I think it's just much more listenable. The opening Pound Cake, always confused. Wasn't this like a single or a hit? I think it's an odd song to both open the album with and be a single. It's got a cool middle breakdown, but it's kind of plotting and just kind of, Judgment Day, a little bit heavier groove, but okay. But then we get Spanked, which is neat, moody, this weird, plotting, creepy, mid-tempo vibe that just works. Run Around, which is just your vintage Hagar type pop rock. Pleasure Dome, Hyper Busy with the drums. This is a longer song. We get this sort of nice galloping groove, but then Hagar does some talking, which I'm checked out on. And then we get to the verses, which are kind of more normal. This is another one of those longer songs, which has some really good moments throughout it. Some moments that don't work, but then we go into like maybe not necessarily proggy, but more extended instrumental sections that just kind of work. By the end of the song, you're like, okay, pretty interesting journey. That's Pleasure Dome. Kind of like a real Pleasure Dome. You have highs and lows, right? It's going to be disappointed at some points after you, what goes up must come down. In and Out, nice hard rocker. Eddie gets to kind of stretch out solo-wise at the end. Man on a Mission, a little bit funkier. Nice little funk groove to this. Not a bad little rockin' number. Though the drumming is just too much production-wise. The Dream Is Over, a little bit heavier, some nice slide guitar action. We got Right Now, the big hit with that awesome Alan Parsons Project Sirius type epic arena rock opener that is fantastic. Can't say I ever really liked this song back in the day. One of the reasons, one of the reasons I stopped listening to Van Halen. Every one of the songs I heard I wasn't that into. Listening to it now on this album, I do like just the production and the build of it. It does. I see why it was a hit. 316 is this sort of gentle instrumental, guitar-based, and then Top of the World, which is just your big Van Hagar pop rock. Not a bad album. I think it's just stronger than Balance. Nothing really bad. But yeah, that would be into my number 3. With the next 2, the top 2, I think actually being really good albums. Number 2 being their last, The Return of David Lee Roth, a deep, different kind of truth. This is a really good album. And I almost rank this as at number 1, but it does have a couple songs which just, one, it peters out towards the end, and it does have a couple songs which just don't engage. But the best thing about this album, the thing that really, really, really makes it work, is we have a handful, like a half dozen, high speed, high tempo, fully engaged, not thrash, because Van Halen never thrashed, but really more motorheady, aggressive type hard rock songs, going back to like an early Van Halen vibe, something they rarely did in the Sammy Hagar years. Opens up with Tattoo. The chorus to this is this weird, almost indie rock melody. Like I could feel like it in like a 80s indie rock song. Not the greatest song, but there are moments of it. But then we get She's the Woman, which has this great, almost Van Halen, mid-CZ Top energy. This is an album that David Lee Roth is back. He sounds older, but still sounds good. Great groove, great momentum, great energy. You and Your Blues, okay song, poppy mixed with some heavy. Chinatown, awesome. This sounds like almost like a Guns N' Roses type late 80s hard rock song. Absolutely fantastic. Blood and Fire, okay, kind of fun, poppy. Then we get Bullethead, faster piece with some great bass. We get As Is, this big drum, big bass, grinding, pounding intro that goes into this shredding Eddie vibe. This feels like old school Van Halen. This just feels like Alex is just going crazy on drums and pounding away, and they're just full on attack. Absolutely amazing. Gets a little weird in the middle where they flirt with this really heavy, almost doom riff, and then they go into this weird, playful, like get low and let David Lee Roth kind of riff briefly, and then we go back into the song. Really awesome song. As Is, fantastic. Honey Baby Sweetie Doll might be the best song on here. Super weird beginning, awesome super fast drop, super riffs in out here. The heaviest song they've dropped so far. The Trouble with Never, another really high speed upbeat attack, absolutely amazing. Out of Space, another ferocious high speed attack. Stay Frosty is just kind of weird and silly and all over the place, kind of bluesy, kind of rock. There's a lot going on. I don't really like the Stay Frosty vocal thing that they repeat, but musically it's kind of a good song. Big River kind of has a Running with the Devil opening vibe, but just doesn't deliver after that. And then Beats Working, kind of a slow intro with like a Scorpion style rock that, okay. Really, a really good album. Like there's a handful of weak tracks that are just kind of there, but the high speed stuff, to hear this band have fun and let loose and just go at it, it just really works. But that would be my number 2. Their 12th, the DLR one from 2012. A Different Kind of Truth, which means my number 1, and I didn't want to put it here. I wanted David Lee Roth to get this spot, but I ultimately decided the more consistent album is 5150. That is my number 1 for the post-original DLR era. It's, other than the sort of, hello, baby, Sammy trying too hard to be DLR at times, it's a pretty solid album, I have to admit. The synths work for me. The vibe works for me. Eddie's taken a different approach to his playing and the way he kind of shreds, but I think it works. The opening good enough. It's just, I don't know. There's no synths on it. This would be a synth-heavy album later on, with Dreams being so huge. Feels like this is almost like a statement, the opening song. Like, we can still rock out without the use of synth. We still got this. Why Can't This Be Love? It just works. The keys work. It's kind of super funky. I don't know. Everything about this song just kind of works. Get Up. Great guitar noise intro into a high adrenaline rocker. One of few in the Hagar era. Eddie's on slide, full attack, great solo, great. We got Dreams, love the soloing throughout here. We got Summer Nights, which has that almost Money for Nothing type guitar intro thing, drop into the song at 36, fun, playful, nice little funk jam in the middle. Best of Both Worlds. Nice, interesting build into the intro. Okay song. Love Walks In. The solo in here might be one of his better solos. Not my biggest song, but I love everything about the guitar solo into the second half of the song, so it kind of wins me over by the end. 5150, I love that opening riff. It's just really cool, kind of offbeat and funky. Love just everything about this song. And then we close out with Inside, which is not my favorite song on here. A lot of the band kind of talking and joking around and trying to show, hey, we're still good buddies and we can be playful and fun. I think it's them trying too hard and ends the album on a note I don't need it to end on, just end with 5150. But this is a pretty solid album, I would say. I liked it when it came out. Wasn't my favorite thing, but I didn't hate it. I was disappointed David Lee Roth left. But now revisiting this over the years, I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty good album. But it's just a little more consistent than a different kind of truth. So yeah, That's what I have. If I had to rank these, well, we know how I would rank them now. If I were to put these with the other 6, the original DLR 6, they just fall at the bottom. The first 6, and then 5150 at 7, A Different Kind of Truth at 8, and on down, because that's just the way it should be. That's the truth. All right. Yeah, that's what it looks like. I wanted David Lee Roth to be at 7. I wanted him to have the top 7, but I got to admit that 5150, they reinvented themselves in a good way. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. I mean, your thoughts on these albums, on any albums, blah, blah, blah. You know how comments work, people. Subscribe, like, share, comment. Go listen if you have not heard A Different Kind of Truth. That's a really good album. I think that was a good comeback. I think it's a good comeback. That's all I got to say. Go listen to it. It's a good comeback. DLR for life. Peace. Talk to you later.